All right, it's exactly 12 o'clock Eastern time. So we are gonna go ahead and get started, allow people to join in and probably miss a few of the introductions, but we're gonna go ahead and get started in the interest of time here. So I'm going to open this up. My name is Reena Bhatia. I am the CEO of ProposalHelper and BidExecs, and I lead the GovCon committee for the Asian American Chamber of Commerce. We are an all volunteer board for the chamber that puts together educational content and brings together speakers that can offer all kinds of information that allow you to do business with the government. Our speaker today, our keynote speaker today is Colonel Charles Galbreath. He's the Deputy Chief Technology and Innovations Officer with the United States Space Force. Our moderator today is Jeff Chao. He's the Managing Director of BidExecs Colorado. And again, for all of you who are new to the Asian American Chamber of Commerce, we are a networking and business chamber that operates primarily out of the DC metro area, but open to members all over the United States. So I hope that you will consider joining the chamber, attending our meetings, but all our webinars from the GovCon chamber are offered at no cost. They're always free to everyone, members and non-members. And our main goal is to bring good educational content on how to do business with the government to the constituents. I do want to remind everyone that the Asian American Chamber is hosting the Jewels of Asia Gala, which happens every year. This year it's on May 28th. Please go to their website and register if you'd like to attend. It's a fantastic networking opportunity to meet your customers, government and non-government folks. With that, I'm going to hand over the mic to Jeff. Jeff, if you can quickly introduce yourself and then introduce the Colonel, and then we'll actually go to what people are here for. Over to you, Jeff.
Excellent. Thank you, Reena. I really appreciate that. Again, my name is Jeff. I'm going to be the host or moderator for today's webinar. We have a couple of pieces of quick house cleaning items that Reena already covered. Maybe not everybody heard that. At the bottom of your screen, you're going to see two chat boxes. These are for two distinct purposes. The first one is the chat box. And as Reena said, this is for all of us to introduce ourselves, maybe do some networking, put some good Tex-Mex recipes in there, whatever you'd like to do. There's also a tab called Q&A. We'd like to reserve this box directly for topics related to the Colonel and Space Force. Time permitting, we're going to try to get to as many of these as possible, whether here on the webinar itself or afterwards. And finally, I think that the wizards behind us are going to mute all of us at the appropriate time, but we would kindly ask that you do a quick check and make sure that any devices that you have around you are muted. And with that, let's jump in. As Reena mentioned, our guest today is Colonel Charles Galbreath. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Colonel. Because I don't, excellent, because I don't want the Colonel to drop a J-dam on my house for mispronouncing his name. He is the Deputy Chief of Technology and Innovation at Space Force. And for those of us who are not super familiar, Space Force was founded in December of 2019, and it was the first brand new branch of the military in over 70 years. Following the Air Force in 1947, shortly after World War II. And it seems to be the natural progression of things as we go higher, literally. And as we aim to become, in our lifetimes, a multi-planetary species. And as our guardians blaze into this undiscovered path, let's be honest, they're going to need stuff. And that's why we're here today. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. Colonel, thank you for taking the time to spend with us today. If you could, please tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you hope to accomplish during this webinar today.
Great. Well, thank you all for the opportunity to speak with you today. As you can see from my bio, I need a new picture I think I'm missing the Space Force emblems on that particular picture. I'll have to send you a new one. But my career was in the Air Force prior to joining the Space Force about 1.5 years ago. And my entire career has been in space in one way or another, bounced between operations and acquisitions and test and launch and policy. But my niche was really that boundary layer between operations and acquisitions, working on demonstration satellites and advanced technologies. So when the Space Force stood up, I jumped at the chance to come out to the headquarters here in the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. and be a part of the team to help stand up this new service. And you know, I didn't even envision the role that I would have in that capacity. I thought I was going somewhere else within the staff, but I found out that we were creating this new office, the Chief Technology and Innovation Office, and that I was going to be the deputy, and I was just thrilled. And you know, the past almost 2 years have been just a blur of activity and excitement, and working with great people on some really exciting projects. And for me, a growth opportunity to learn a lot more about what it is to be digital, what it is to be a digital service. And that's what I'm going to talk a little bit about today is what the Space Force means when it says we are a digital service, we're born digital. And then just a quick comment of, you know, the Space Force is the first new service since 1947. And as you said correctly, the Air Force came out as a new service just after World War II. And I am so grateful that it didn't take a third World War for us to acknowledge the fact that we needed a Space Force, and in hopes that the capabilities and the benefits that we can provide to deterrence and to our national security will help us prevent a third World War of some sort in the future. That's what it's really all about for the military, is to deter aggression. And so I'm just glad that we have this opportunity to establish a new service now. So if you'd like, I can start sharing some of my charts, unless you wanted me to talk about anything else before I dive in there.
Oh, the spotlight is yours, sir.
Okay, let's see if others have to stop sharing. Okay, let me try this. Share. So the first thing of being a digital service is that you have to know how to share slides. So hopefully these are coming across and I get to keep my badge. You should see the title slide. Can you verify that for me, Jeff?
We see it.
Okay, great. Well, as the chart says, we're going to talk a little bit about being a digital service. One of the number one questions I get is, well, what does it mean to be a digital service? And so we'll talk about that. The second leading question I get is, well, what is the CTIO? I haven't heard of anything like that before. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. So you asked, what are my objectives from this session? One, it's to articulate what the Space Force means by being a digital service, what the CTIO is and how we're supporting that effort. But ultimately, it's about innovation and what we're doing within the CTIO and across the Space Force to lead innovation efforts on behalf of the service and in support of the service, and how we need to partner with academia, with industry, with international partners and others to achieve our overall objectives. So let me just quickly start with let's see if I can advance, there we go. The Chief Technology and Innovation Office. If you're familiar at all with a traditional, we call it Napoleonic structure for a space staff, you've got like the S1 that does personnel, S2, which is intelligence, S3, which is operations, et cetera. You won't see anywhere on there a CTIO. And within the CTIO, the only thing that we have that even remotely resembles that traditional structure is the Directorate of Analysis, the S9. Everything else in the CTIO is really geared towards driving us to being a digital service and to advance technology and innovation in support of the Space Force. We do this with 4 different directorates that we have there, including analysis, which helps us determine if we're investing in the right areas and we're getting the return on that investment that we hoped we would get. But it also has the technology and research area, science, technology, and research, which is the services lead for, as it sounds, science, technology, and research. So we work with AFRL, which is one lab for two services, both the Space Force and the Air Force. We work with industry, we work with academia to say, here are the long-term science and technology needs with the technology needs that we need for the Space Force. We prioritize that list. We work with all of those partners to really have a concerted effort to go after the technologies and the technology maturation programs that are needed. But then we have these middle two directorates that are really geared towards being a digital service. And so it's a combination of Innovation and Digital Transformation Directorate and the IT Infrastructure Data and Data Analytics. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about what each of those do in the context of a digital service as we go forward. But all of those directorates report to Dr. Lisa Costa, who is the Chief Technology and Innovation Officer for the Space Force, my boss. She is a 3-star equivalent, along with her counterparts on the space staff, Lieutenant General Saltzman, Lieutenant General LaCourie, and Ms. Mulcahy. They support directly to General Raymond, the CSO. And our area is, as you can see, the different functions that we have here in these directorates. And one of the things that hopefully comes across in any discussion about the CTIO is we're not doing things in these stovepipe structures that we've created, but we create teams that are really cross-functional. So we'll have an analyst working with a data expert, working with an IT expert, working with an operations expert, working with a science and technology guy to move forward on that particular effort. The CTIO right now is only about 40 government billets on our path to being about 90 at our end state, which is still very small. And this is by design. The Space Force staff as a whole is going to be a very small organization. This was directed, by General Raymond, because we need to be lean, we need to be agile, and so we are, easily a 10th of the size of other staffs, and so we have to do a lot more with the people that we have, and so we need to be digitally focused, and that's true for the service as well. And of course, we're going to rely on partnerships. I mentioned some of them earlier on the science and technology side. But when it comes to digital transformation, there are pockets of activity going on in industry as well as within the government, and we need to partner with all of those folks as well. So that's just a little bit about the CTIO as an organization within the Space Force staff. And in the next few charts, I'll talk more specifically about digital transformation. Okay, so really one of the first documents that came out from the Space Force was the CSO's planning guidance. And that came out in November of 2020. So just under a year after the Space Force stood up at all as a service. And in this CSO's planning guidance, he identified that the areas that he wanted the service to focus on as part of its stand-up, as part of being a new service. And one of those was to establish ourselves as a digital service to accelerate innovation. And really that's what the CTIO is all about. How do we accelerate innovation through the employment of digital capabilities? The CSO's planning guidance also talked about 4 what we now call focus areas: digital headquarters, digital operations, digital workforce, digital engineering. But it didn't go into any detail about what those were, how they interact with one another, or how they ultimately support the end state of being a digital service. So we recognized that there needed to be a companion document to that CSO's planning guidance, an outward-looking, a forward-looking document that says, okay, in the future, when we are a digital service, fully robust, what does that look like? What does that mean? And so in May of 21, we released the Vision for a Digital Service. This is a document that, from an external point of view, it's saying where we want to head. What are the technologies that we need to invest in? What are the operational concepts we're trying to develop and employ and utilize as a digital service? We outlined 3 key tenets of being interconnected, being innovative, and being digitally dominant. And in a nutshell, that's what it is for us to be a digital service. We recognize that we need to be interconnected. We need to be able to communicate with ourselves digitally and without any significant barriers. We need to share information with our allies and our partners and with academia and with industry, because it takes all of us to accomplish the mission of the Space Force. So that connectivity is the first fundamental tenet of being a digital service. We're not there where we need to be yet, but the fact that we're doing this Zoom call as opposed to all getting together in a room somewhere is an indication of where we have come as a digital service. The COVID pandemic, as bad as it is, has forced all of us to look at new ways of operating and doing things like telework and virtual meetings. And that has really been a further catalyst towards our digital transformation. We talk about being a digital service and being born digital, but I also talk about the transformation to becoming a digital service. And you might be scratching your head, well, hey, those two don't really jive with one another. I look at it like when an infant is born, they're a human being, but they're not a fully equipped, mature human being capable of running and holding down a job and all the things that we try to do as adults. There's a growth, a maturation that has to occur. So the same thing is true. We're born digital. We have some nascent digital capabilities. Many of the Guardians that are coming into the service now, they grew up being digital natives, but many of us, like me, were digital dinosaurs. Yeah, I played Nintendo and Atari as a kid, but I didn't, crack into the thing and start coding. There are people that did. And so we need to accelerate and educate our workforce. And that's that second key tenet of, innovative. How do we instill the right attitude and the right aptitude in our Guardians to succeed in a digital environment? So we want to create the skills to be fluent in digital conversation, to understand the difference between artificial intelligence, machine learning, to know when that's applicable, what the prerequisites are, et cetera. We also want to create a culture that inspires folks to recognize when there's a problem, to go ahead and say, hey, there's a problem here, but then to take it a step further and say, and here's a potential solution. Because we can all sit around and Monday morning quarterback all the bad things and pick your organization. But we want folks that are capable of also identifying the solutions and have that right attitude and aptitude to make that happen. And the last tenet is to be digitally dominant. And this, when we wrote it, we knew that there was going to be some debate about this, because on the surface, it's going to sound like, oh, that's the Space Force trying to dominate the cyberspace domain, typical military. But that's not really what we meant at all. What we meant is every person has a preference, a dominant preference, the way they think based on their background, the way they interact with things. Whether you're left-handed or right-handed, you have a dominant preference. And we want our Guardians to have a preference towards digital technologies. We want them to think about digital solutions and attack problems in a digital way as their first course of action, as opposed to a second or third course of action. If you're supposed to provide an update on the status of your satellite constellation, we would much rather have you build a dashboard that streams in real-time telemetry from your architecture into a dashboard that displays real-time what your status is, as opposed to calling somebody on the phone, building a PowerPoint chart based off of what they told you, and then having to make that call every week if you want an update, right? We want people to think and prefer digital solutions, so digitally dominant. So those are the three key tenets of being a digital service: interconnected, innovative, digitally dominant. When we rolled out the vision for a digital service, we intended to do a couple things. One, set a vision for where we wanted to head as a service, what it means down the road, but also to start the educational path. So, we introduced some terms in there like digital nomad, like entrepreneurship. We wanted to get people to start thinking about this, again, to try to create this level foundation of digital fluency for the Space Force. And I'm going to talk more about that digital fluency foundation in a subsequent slide. But we knew that the vision by itself wouldn't be enough. We needed a path to get us there. And so even before we released the vision, we started work on what we call the Digital Transformation Roadmap. And this roadmap identifies key activities within what we call the 4 focus areas to move us towards being a digital service. It's based off of what our current needs are, what our priorities are, what technology is available, and frankly, our bandwidth as a small service. We knew that this roadmap was going to have to evolve over time as new problems came to bear, as solutions matured and became evident, as priorities shift and as technologies present themselves. We needed to be able to adjust. So you're not going to find a document on anybody's shelf that says Digital Transformation Roadmap. We built it in a tool called ServiceNow as a living document, and we make updates to it daily to say, this objective needs to be tweaked a little bit because this subordinate task is taking longer than we thought, or we didn't think we needed a whole new mission-focused infrastructure, but now we recognize that as a must-have for us to be a digital service. So let's add that in. So it's a living document. And ever since August of 2021, we've been implementing and modifying and refining this digital transformation roadmap with the help of our partners and the field commands of Space Operations Command, STARCOM, the Space Training and Readiness Command, Space Systems Command, Space Warfighting Analysis Center, as well as the other elements of the staff here in the Pentagon. And so this digital transformation journey is going to continue. And really, there isn't an end state per se where we say, okay, plant a flag and call mission complete. We can no longer worry about digital transformation because we know technology is going to continuously evolve and our needs are going to continuously evolve as well. So it's going to be a living document. It's going to be a continuous journey. So let me shift over and dive into a little bit more detail on those 4 focus areas. Again, first laid out in the CSO's planning guidance, further articulated and described in the Vision for a Digital Service, and now the framework for a digital transformation roadmap. I like to start in the upper right corner with digital workforce because it's about people. Digital transformation is really more about culture and about mindset than it is just technology. Certainly there is a technology element, but really, at least 51% of our digital transformation is about people. I mentioned earlier the tenets of being a digital service and talked about the attitude and aptitude of our force. And really, that's what digital workforce is all about, creating the right attitude and aptitude, that cultural mindset in the Space Force. We have a program through Digital University called Force Multiplier courses. And these are a set of tailored lessons that talk about artificial intelligence, that talk about agile methodology, that talk about cybersecurity and others, data, digital engineering. And we want everybody in the Space Force to go through these training modules because we want everybody to be able to have a common digital language, to understand one another when they're talking about this. It also sets up the opportunity to go, oh, you know what, I want to learn a little bit more about this aspect of digital engineering, and there's courses available for you in Digital University. Or, this made me think about a new type of code that I would like someone to write. Well, who do you get to do that? You go to the Software Development Immersive program, and you get one of our super coders that has gone through that program to help you. And we have that as a specific effort that builds on top of that foundation of Digital University to an area of specific software coding skills, so that these super coders can now lead efforts to write and employ code that supports their specific mission set. We want to create similar programs for data, for AI, and for other areas as we go forward as part of our overall digital workforce strategy. But really, at the bottom line, it's about the right attitude and the right aptitude in our guardians. The next area, so working counterclockwise here, digital engineering. That is really the connectivity, the hardware, the network backbone of our digital transformation. There are activities going on right now at Space Systems Command and others, Space RCO, that are building digital models of the systems that are being developed. And that's great, that's very important. But we really see digital engineering as an end-to-end capability. So it supports all the things from the Space Warfighting Analysis Center's force design, where they're talking about ideas and concepts for capabilities, through the planning, programming, and budget, through the acquisition, through the development of capability, through the test, through the development of tactics, techniques, and procedures, through the training of the crew force, all the way through the operations. We want this digital engineering ecosystem to exist, and a digital twin mature from a very rough, crude concept through a no-kidding, fully robust digital twin that accurately emulates the actual system. We want to create this, this network, this dedicated mission system to support that. And that's what we call the Spaceverse. And the next chart is going to go into a little bit more detail on what that is. Moving down again, counterclockwise down to digital headquarters. It's about employing digital techniques and digital tools to make a more informed and hopefully a better decision at all levels of the Space Force, not just here at the Pentagon, but at all levels. So if there's a decision to be made, are you getting the right data that you need to make that decision? Is it coming via a digital means? Do you have the right analytics in place to assess whether that data is going to help you make decision A or decision B? It's everything from how we onboard and train people, where we allocate resources, every aspect of decision making that's captured here in digital headquarters. And then ultimately, it all culminates in digital operations. How do we take that skilled workforce with the right tools in the right digital environment, making the right decisions to affect operations, to affect things like joint all-domain command and control, space domain awareness, to ensure that we're providing the right capabilities with the right level of lethality and support to the joint force from space and for space. So that's really the culminating point is in digital operations. Okay, I think this is my last real substantive chart, and that is a concept for what we call the Spaceverse. Now, Dr. Costa, when she came from SOCOM, she had experience establishing special mission networks for the operators at SOCOM. And she's trying to create special mission network here within the Space Force as well. One that combines the different activities from SWAC's force design through acquisition, through test, through planning, through operations, all within a digital environment. Utilizing a common set of tools and a common set of data that is authoritative, so that we don't have people guessing at what's going on, or saying, well, I believe it's this, no, I believe it's this, and my data is better than yours. It's all together, and we can compare and we can do analytics on that to determine what the right way forward is. We want to create this collaborative environment for the bringing together of the different viewpoints. So, digital tenants, interconnected, that's the Spaceverse. Innovative, we want to bring in the acquirer, the operator, the intelligence, the cyber person, the academia, industry, all together to help us solve problems. Innovative. Digitally dominant, we're doing this in a digital first solution. So really it's the embodiment of the vision for a digital service. There have been previous efforts to try to unite things, JMS, for example, Enterprise Ground System. Those are all, good efforts that have had varying degrees of success. Why should we have any more faith in the Spaceverse than what we had in some of those efforts? Well, one, our lead, Dr. Costa, has developed specific mission systems dedicated to the areas in SOCOM, and we know that we can build on those lessons for the Space Force. Second, the technology has matured. What industry is doing today is far and away exceeding what was possible even a year or two ago. Advancements in artificial intelligence, advancements in virtual and augmented realities are making the concept of Spaceverse real. Gaming technology has grown incredibly, and another impact of the pandemic. Online gaming increased dramatically over the past couple of years, creating virtual forums where people can get together, in a digital space and share ideas and commiserate, and then go off on adventures together, right? Or conduct missions. So the technology is there. We're just bringing it together in a new and innovative way. That's the intent of the Space Force. So I'm happy to take questions on those. My contact information is here if you want to get more information or send me some thoughts. But I want to leave with this. I've talked about the CTIO and digital innovation and transformation and innovation within the Space Force. But I don't want anybody to think that it's all happening here in the CTIO. It couldn't happen without the great partnerships we have and a whole host of activities across the entire Space Force. We've got Guardians and our civilians just doing incredibly innovative things on a daily basis. So it's not just us. You may have heard recently there was the Orbital Prime activity out of SpaceWorks, which is with Space Systems Command, that's trying to get after the orbital debris problem. So that's another great example of some innovation and some ways of applying great partnerships to move forward. I think they awarded something like 70 different contracts as a result of that Orbital Prime effort, which is phenomenal. I know that they received a record number of inputs for that specific activity, which is also speaks volumes. The Space Enterprise Consortium, also at a Space Systems Command, brings together traditional and non-traditional vendors to apply other transaction authorities. We're working very closely with the S1, the Human Capital Shop, on the University Partnership Program, again, partnering with academia to help advance our science and technology understanding. The University Consortium I mentioned as well. So there's just a host of activities going on with great Americans, great Guardians in the Space Force across the area. So with that, I will pause. We've been talking for about a half hour. I want to make sure we leave ample time for Q&A. So I will stop sharing, and I'm going to take a drink of water and shut up for a little bit. And Jeff, over to you.
Thank you, Colonel. I actually just had one follow-up question, and you covered a couple of the tenets throughout your presentation as well as toward the end about how you talked about how quickly technology moves, how the target consistently and constantly moves, and how you need to shift and pivot and be nomadic and reassess at all times what it is that you're looking for. Frankly speaking, there's going to be a lot of folks on this webinar today and in the future who see this, who think that they have a product or a service that's going to benefit America and Space Force. And when that time comes, and it's a big question, but what's the best way to approach that and to see if the product or service that they have is applicable and critical to your mission?
Yeah. Thank you, Jeff. That's a great question. And I know a lot of folks are going to have it. So the number one piece of advice is sort of keep your ear to the ground. There are going to be announcements on a regular basis, like Orbital Prime, like Space Enterprise Consortium calls for proposals. There will also be publication of our science and technology priorities for the long term as well. And so if you have something that supports one of those priority areas, or can support an Orbital Prime initiative or a Space Enterprise Consortium RFP, then that's a great way. You can also continue to work with some of the traditional partners if you've been working with AFRL or AFWorks or DIU, for SIBR and SITR activities as well. So one of the things we're trying to do with the CTIO is create an outward-facing portal that will identify these are the technologies and the areas that we're interested in getting solicitation and proposals. And I can't wait for that to happen, because I tell you, industry is knocking at my door on a regular basis, and I could easily spend most of my day, every day, listening to the great things that are going on. And yeah, absolutely, there's a lot of great technologies that could really help us. Matching the right solution to the right problem at the right time with the right advocacy and end user is really the art of it. So keep your ear to the ground. Announcements will come, but also please be patient. Right now, we're a very small service. We're just over 13,000 on our path of growing to a whopping 18,000. But what that means is, we're roughly 2/3 to half manned. but we're also trying to do the job of a full service and create the service as we go. So we're building the rocket ship after the fuse has been lit, and in many ways we've already lifted off, and we're trying to build as we go. So please be patient with us.
Thank you, Colonel. We appreciate your time today, all of the insights that you've brought and clarity that you've brought to a number of issues. I'm going to hand the mic back over to Reena and see if she'd like to follow up from there.
Yeah, no, thank you. This is excellent information. I learned a ton myself. So thank you for sharing the slides, and for our audience, the slides will be available. There are some questions on that. There are a couple of follow-up questions in the chat box. And I'm curious about this also, in the latest on your move from Colorado to Huntsville. You want to shed some light? There were some tweets about that, and I know the industry.
Sure. So the first thing is we have to clarify the difference between the United States Space Force, which is a service, and United States Space Command, which is a combatant command. So two different things. For a while, General Raymond was dual-hatted as both, but he was real glad to give up one of those hats. So the combatant command is responsible for, the operations, the execution of the space mission, to provide combat effects for the joint force. They're responsible for the space domain. So that U.S. Space Command headquarters is sort of set up right now in Colorado Springs, because that's where U.S. Space Command and STRATCOM and stuff were a while back. The decision was made to move to another location, and I'm going to stay out of that political food fight and let the decision makers that have the authority to do that weigh all the options and decide where it needs to be. But that is U.S. Space Command. Now, U.S. Space Force as a service, like the Army, the Navy, the Marines, Coast Guard, Air Force, they're all headquartered here in the Pentagon, just like all of the services. And so we're not going anywhere. The Pentagon's not going to go anywhere. So we're pretty well established there.
Perfect. Thanks for that clarity. A lot of questions around that. Now, in one of your slides, you spoke about the workforce, and that is so important, not just for Space Force from the government side, but for the industry to know where to invest in our people, where do we train our people. Can you talk a little bit about what kinds of educational and leadership development opportunities are you using industry for to build the capabilities of your own staff?
Yeah, great. So thank you for that. One of the key areas that we're trying to do is create a different way of handling talent management as a service, as a small service, a very small service. We know that we have to employ different techniques. The whole Guard Reserve construct is something that we're looking at very, very hard, and are trying to produce some innovative ways of handling that. That I think is for a different discussion. For us in digital transformation, we're trying to create opportunities for the exchange of people into industry and back into government and vice versa. We have a couple positions in the CTIO that are designed to bring people from industry directly into our office for a 2 or 3 year tour and then go back to industry. We'd love to be able to set the same thing up where we send folks to a company for a while. Now, education with industry has been around for a long time as a formal program. We're going to continue to expand that as well. In fact, one of the jam sessions, I don't know if I mentioned jam sessions, but it's a monthly forum where we get together and discuss like brown bag topics. It's a virtual environment. One of the topics that we had last month was on education with industry, and the fact that it's open to officers, enlisted, and civilian now, which is great. So that's been expanded. And so we want to get people an opportunity to go live, work, breathe with industry, find out how you guys are approaching innovation, how you're approaching digital transformation, take those lessons learned back so that we can take advantage of the work that's already been done. As far as education goes, space has always been a technical domain, right? It is rocket science after all. So we have always preferred science, technology, engineering, mathematics degrees. I think now definitely include software coding, data science, et cetera, into that mix as well, because the Space Force and the mission that we execute has always been a digital one. We don't have pilots sitting in satellites flying around the Earth. We have operators on the ground remotely commanding and controlling those assets. So it's virtual. So that link has always been a digital computer-based link. And so if there are ways that we can improve that through coding or recoding, we want to be able to get the right talent to be able to help us do that.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Another question here is advice to small business. When they hear about everything that you need, and I'm so excited to hear that you're going to put this portal out there to let businesses know what your needs are, because the complaint is, well, we never get to meet with the actual people who have requirements. So that's going to tremendously help industry. But advice to small businesses on where they should invest in terms of their capabilities if they want to do business with the Space Force.
Well, so I guess there's a maybe threefold answer to this. One, Space Enterprise Consortium is a great way to find out where we're trying to head as a Space Force in terms of traditional and non-traditional contracts. So that's one thing. Two, if you're a small business, you have a business model already. You have a technology that you think is a true game changer. Otherwise, you wouldn't have created yourself as a business. So how does that technology match with the vision and the intent and the direction that the Space Force is heading in? So we have to have collaborative forums like this where we can share those views with one another, so that you can help, I can apply this technology that I have to the Space Force to solve this problem. So that's another key aspect. But I will say this, and this is not a new concept. The military doesn't want to be the only customer to any business, right? Especially small business, because if we go away or if we prioritize, then that whole small business industry passes away. We don't want that. We want a small business that is able to have a business case for the commercial sector that then we can take advantage of as well. So we're investing both government and private funding to advance that technology in a partnership. Where there are specific government needs that might require a little vector on that, we can certainly bring those to the table. So keep your ear to the ground on the Space Enterprise Consortium. Keep looking for forums like this where you can hear where the Space Force is heading to match your technology that makes you unique as a company to our mission set. And then finally, making sure that your business case doesn't solely rely on the government for sustainment.
Sound advice for sure. And I have one last question. This is more related to procurement, and if you don't want to answer it, would be okay. But one of the things that the industry has seen is a lot of use of best-in-class vehicles. Is there a vehicle of choice, such as OASIS or SBs, that Space Force prefers to buy through or contract through versus just open procurement?
So I'm gonna maybe cheat a little bit on this answer. We're interested in the vehicle that gets us the capability the fastest. If it's a pre-existing vehicle, great, let's leverage it. If there isn't a pre-existing vehicle that lets us do what we need to do, then sure, we'll go to a new vehicle. But we really want to try to leverage the things that are already in place, as much as possible. A full and open competition is great. You can get a lot of wonderful inputs, but everybody knows there's a lot of time and effort consumed in building the proposals from the contractor's point of view and evaluating those proposals from the government point of view. Anything we can do to streamline that process is goodness. So if we can take advantage of contract vehicles that are already in place, we're going to look at that as a first option.
Perfect. Well, I'll do a follow-up on that. The Air Force uses pitch days because of to go around the traditional lengthy procurement process, have you considered or do you use pitch days also?
So the Space Force, even before we were the Space Force, we did a space pitch day back in what was in the San Francisco area. I want to say 2019, November of 2019, I think. And I think we've done a subsequent one since. So absolutely, we are looking at those as options. And as I mentioned, we're still working with AFWorks and DIU, SpaceWorks, AFRL, NRL, et cetera. So yeah, we're looking at that as an option too.
Perfect. Well, I think that's about all the questions that we have. There are some others, but I think you've answered them as you've gone along. Thank you again, Colonel, for all the time and the information you have shared. This was tremendously helpful. Appreciate it.
No, thank you very much for the opportunity. You'd be surprised how often I get the question, what is a digital service? What is a CTIO? And so any opportunity I can get to help, share what it is we do, I jump at it. So thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for your attention. And I look forward to any questions that might come offline as well. Thank you.
I'm sure you'll get a lot of emails. You've shared your contact info. I do want to give a shout out to Captain Fisher for helping us coordinate all this. Captain Fisher, thank you for your help.
My pleasure.
All right. Jeff, any closing remarks from your side? You're on mute, sir.
Thank you to both the Colonel, the Captain, as well as Space Force for your time today. Again, this is a brand new military branch, and we know that things move very quickly and into a space that is non-traditional. My last comment is, the Colonel already covered this. We're talking about the space above and in some cases the space within. I think you mentioned the metaverse and things that are also new to us. So we are looking forward to this new adventure, and we are here to support you in any way that we can. And so, gentlemen, thank you, and we hope that you have a pleasant journey.
Thank you all. Thanks for joining. And again, on behalf of the Asian American Chamber, thanks to the participants who attended today. Thanks, Jeff. Take care. Bye-bye.